If we're being honest here, in the world of STEM, mathematics has a very strong psychological weight. And it's not only because mathematics is hard in itself, but it's also, in many cases, a sort of status symbol. Most people come to the conclusion that being good at math is the same thing as being smart. So what happens when you're usually very good at math, but one day you find yourself struggling, or even worse, failing in a math-related area? Like you try and try and try, but for example, you can't understand what you're reading in a very advanced math book. Or you can't really grasp how to prove a theorem. I remember when I was doing my master's and I had to pass a class called commutative rings. To be very honest, abstract algebra has never been my strongest area, but I find it very interesting. Anyway, I remember that I did really badly in the first exam, and then the professor came up to me and said that I didn't know anything about algebra and that was my problem. He said that he would not help me because I didn't have the correct foundations, so it was pretty much useless to try to help me. I mean, he was right, but I took it in the wrong way. And even though I passed the exam, the final exam, and I had to work really hard to do it, I feel like I never really learned the main concepts of commutative rings. So I'm talking about ideals, quotient rings, modules, and so on. And I think it's mostly out of an unconscious fear I have because of this bad experience. Honestly, I find myself procrastinating many times to pick up a book on commutative rings and try again. So this kind of fear lies not only on the fact that you may, and probably you will, get stuck on the same problem for hours and hours, but it's also this uncomfortable thought that this failure tells something about yourself, that fundamentally you are not smart enough. But the thing is, in my opinion, this sense of exclusivity does more damage than good for the general public who's just interested in math. Having a good reputation in general is an important thing in society. When it comes to academic circles, being really good in your field earns you a lot of respect. So if you're able to work on a tough proof, or talk about abstract structures, and casually use some fancy mathematical jargon, people are bound to look at you differently. And it feels nice. But what happens if you fail, like I did? Honestly, failure happens to all of us. But what if you can't follow a book or a lecture on commutative rings, for example? The fear is not only that you lack what it takes to succeed, but also that you're gonna be seen by others as an imposter. There is a feeling of like, maybe you are not mathematically advanced enough to be part of this group. Of course, there is also your internal lens, the way you see yourself. For someone who has their entire identity wrapped up around this intellectual ability you have, if one day you fail in math, especially in math, it can feel like devastating. It's not just, I didn't understand this. It becomes more like, am I not who I thought I was? And this moment of doubt creates a lot of pain, because it might produce some sort of identity crisis. I don't know if that makes sense to you, or if you can relate or not, but anyway, let us know in the comments section. I'm really curious to see if I'm the only one who struggled with these things, or if there are others like me. There's also the factor of time, that for you to understand something math, especially when it comes to advanced math, usually you have to put in hours and hours of work, and many times it takes you to dead ends, which means that you wasted 2 or 3 hours of your life and maybe the whole day without any results. But was this time really wasted? The thing is, people nowadays, and I include myself in this, are used to instant gratifications, so to get results quick. And when we don't get them quickly enough, we think like this: if I couldn't get it in 1 or 2 days studying it, maybe it's not worth my time, or even worse, maybe I'm just not capable of doing it. I mean, just read some of the comments in our videos and you will see. Some people have very low self-esteem when it comes to math. You can clearly see how this insecurity is blocking them from growing, even though they really enjoy the subject. And the problem with this fear is that it leads to avoidance. People end up avoiding topics that challenge them, even though it only happens in an unconscious level. So my advice is to convince yourself that struggling in math is normal. Even really talented mathematicians spend a lot of time in problems that at the end result in nothing. The difference is not that they don't fail, but they fail productively. They fail fast so that they can understand what doesn't work and what works, what takes you to dead ends, so that they never take this route again. So the truth is, the deeper you go in mathematics, the more advanced the topic, the more you're gonna struggle. And the more obvious it's gonna be what you don't know. But also the rewards are greater. So that's a good thing. Let me know if you guys had any kind of similar experience in the comment section below. See you next time.